Hi there. In the last lecture, we briefly discussed how to create a menu system and how to pull our categories or blog categories to the front end of our site. In this lecture, I want to actually list all of the categories or all of the blog posts linked to the relevant category when it is clicked. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our views.html views.py file, and I'm going to create a new function here. And what this function is going to do is it's going to link to our archive category page, and basically that archive is going to be a list of all of our posts. So this function is going to be very similar to, let's just call it archive because we're not going to archive anything else. Very similar to our home function. So again, with all of these, we need to pull in the request parameter. And then again, we are going to pull in a post list. So we can just say post list here. And then for the most part, the pagination is going to be exactly the same. So let's just copy this entire function for now, and then we can tweak it as we go along. Awesome. Okay, so if we wanted to really practice dry principles, which is don't repeat yourself, so dry, DRY, then we would actually want to create another function that was called for both home and archive. Because this code is so similar, it's going to be returning something that is very similar. But for the case of this example, we are just going to keep them separate for now. So the main difference between these two functions is that the first one, the first difference being that it's going to that the archive function is actually going to have a category passed into it. So when this view is run, we want to send it a category. And the second difference is that we don't actually want it to return all the posts. We only want it to return the list of posts that are relevant to that specific category. So within here, we can say category, let's say category. Um, Instead of saying all as well, we would rather say filter. So I don't know if you've noticed this, but we have used uh, got posts.objects.getAll here, and then later on we've said in our next function posts.objects.get. So these are two different functions, post.objects.all and post.objects.get. So what all does is it obviously returns every single instance of this particular model. What get does is it gets one instance of the model where this particular condition is met. And what the filter function does is it can possibly return more than one result. So the only difference between get and filter really is that get is always going to only look for one result, and filter is going to possibly look for more results. So if there's one result, it will return one result. If there's more than one result, it will return more. So what we want to do is we actually want to now filter by our category. So we want to say filter the post objects where our category is equal to the category that was passed in over here. But unfortunately, this is going to be passed in as a slug. So when we call the archive page, it's not going to return a full category. So what we will actually need to do is to create an instance of that category that's pulled in with the slug as a reference. So let me just say cat is equal to category.object. So now we want to actually use the get because we only want to return one result. And we're going to say category.get where our category slug is equal to the slug that is passed in to this view. So we're going to pass a slug into this view through a URL parameter. So now we should have our instance of the category. So we can say post list is equal to post.objects.filter where category is equal to our category. Great. So this is really cool because it's actually pulling in category and category. Now, what you'll remember is that when a category is pulled in, or when an object is returned, specifically ones that we defined here, it's pulling in the title. So this doesn't really help us because we may have more than one category with the same title. So the way that we get around this is we actually want to call the category ID and match the category ID. So there's a special filter in Django where we can say category, so that's the name of our field, underscore underscore, and this is only if it is a foreign key field. So we are now calling this particular field our category field, and we can call any attributes on the category that matches this. So we can call any of these attributes, including the ID attribute on this particular category from here. Uh, so I'm going to go to back to here, and the way that we call the ID, which would be, I think, the best way um, for us to distinguish between our categories, is with the PK. And what PK stands for is primary key, which is the identifier that we use, which is the actual incremental implicit field that gets created. So when we say category and we create our first category, that'll have an implicit primary key of 1, and that'll keep incrementing. So every time a new one is created, it'll be primary key 2, primary key 3, primary key 4. If we go back to our back end of the site, you can see that if we go to our categories and we click on weather, this one's primary key is 2, and then you can assume that this news is going to be 1, so 1 and 2. So that's what we are comparing against here in our view. So we are saying where the primary key of our category is equal to the newly created category object, which has matched our category slug. So that dot ID, so it's the identifier. So what you'll notice here is that we are using ID in this case, but we are using PK in this case. Now, the two of these are changed around at various points, so don't worry too much about that. Just know that this is a specific attribute that can be accessed, and primary key is just the identifier that Django has decided to give it, while if we are returning an actual object, the identifier for the primary key is ID. Okay, awesome. So now what we should technically get is if we call this archive function and we pass in our category slug into it, we should technically get a list of posts that are paginated, that are part of the category that was passed in as a slug. So that is great. That's exactly what we're looking for. So the next thing that we need to do is make sure that this archive function is actually called. So if we go to our views over here, we don't want to pull in the blog views dot single function. We want to pull in the blog views dot archive function. And because the category has been grouped in our regular expression and is passed into the URL, we now have access to our category slug. So if we had to now go back to the front end of our site and refresh it, and we click on weather, for example, it should be listing the categories related to that. It doesn't really help at this point because news and um, weather is kind of calling the same thing, and because weather is a child of news, both will get triggered when we call either of them. So we need to explicitly state otherwise. So weather and news are now separate categories, and I'm now going to create a new post. And I'm going to make the admin the author, and I'm just going to say lorem ipsum here, and say description here, and then the category that I'm going to link to for this example is news. So now hello world is weather, and our other example is news. Let's just add one more here, and we can say another post, how do you spell another? Not like that. Another post. And I'm just going to say text in here, and I'm going to link this one to the news as well. So now news should have 2 posts, and weather should have 1 post. So when we refresh our front end, you'll see that, oh, we first need to actually click on one of these. What is happening here? Why is this not working? You'll notice that all 3 of them are being pulled in. That is not what we want. Let's go back to our code and see what the problem is over here. So let's do a little bit of debugging here. Let's first go to our header.html and make sure that all is in order here. So we have our category.slug. So that is correct. Our URL that is linking through, that's right. If we go to our views page, here we go. This is what the problem is. We have not yet created our archive category template, so it's only ever loading the page template. So I'm going to load archive there, and I'm going to create a new template called archive.html. Great, let's save that. And it's going to be very similar to home.html, so I'm just going to copy the whole of home.html, and I'm just going to paste it. And the only difference now being that the posts that are loaded are specific to the archive. So if we look at our views here, the posts that come back are queried based on our category that we selected, whereas as the posts that get pulled in through here is just basically every single post. So let's now go back to the front end of our site, and let's have a look what's going on. If we can go to the weather page, and nothing is changing. Why is this? Let's go back. Weather's got everything. News. Nope, this is still not right. So I mean, this kind of stuff can take a little bit of debugging to get right. So I'm just going to tinker a little bit more with this. So let's see, this is all looking correct. I just want to make sure that this template here is actually running. So this is actually great. This is something that we can test. So if we now go into our view, we can actually pass the name of the category into, or the slug of the category into our view. So I'm going to say comma, and then I'm going to say category, and it might actually be better to pass the title of our category in. So here we can say cat dot title. So now when we call the category variable in our view, it's going to pull in that specific category's title. And here we can just go like this and say category, and let's see if that is working. No, it's not. It's still loading the home page for some reason. So why is this? Let's do a little bit more debugging and see what we can do. I'm just going to comment out this home view here and see what happens. And now we are getting weather and news. Great, and this is working exactly the way that we wanted to. So it looks like what is happening is that our home URL regular expression is matching the category views regular expression for some reason. So let's just remove part of that regular expression, because what we've just said here is just start, and then it's kind of just starting the regular expression. So let's run this again and see if we click home. Yes, so this is actually what our problem is here. And this is why it's very important to get your regular expressions right. So I'm just going to run start and end, And let's put a backslash in there to see, or forward slash in there to see if that works. And we have an error here. So let's try that one more time. Great, and now it's working the way we wanted to. So essentially what happened here is I forgot to end our regular expression on our home root, and I'm glad that we did it at this point so we could fix it early on. So what I'm saying in this regular expression is the start, if you remember from our regular expression lecture, is the start of our regular expression, and then I was not ending the regular expression at all. So basically everything that came after that matched our regular expression. For some reason, the post regular expression didn't pick up an error. It's possibly because we may have created these two at the same time, and the Django system was clever enough to work it out. But then as soon as I created another one, the rest of this regular expression after here was never actually picked up because it hit the home regular expression that didn't have an ending clause, and it just thought that we were on the home page. Great. So now that I've made a proper fool of myself with regards to this testing, we can now see a little bit on how to debug uh, issues that come up on our Django site. Great. I think regardless of that though, I'm very happy with the results that we are getting. So now we actually have a full menu system that is linking through to the categories that we want.